hey, if you're working on your business taxes, so you're self-employed and you have to deal with the Schedule C, you may be wondering, what is even going to be deductible out there, right? So it makes it very challenging to do your taxes if you don't know what you can deduct. Because we can't deduct everything. It's just not, hey, I want to go ahead and I want to deduct this expense. There has to be a relation to your business, and it has to be what the IRS claims as ordinary and necessary business expenses. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to walk you through some expenses that are not deductible, so that way you can get a feel for what would be deductible. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to provide you with a checklist that's going to help you understand, is this going to be a deductible expense or not? So let's go ahead and let's start looking at some of those expenses that are business expenses that are not deductible for your business. Okay, to understand what kind of expenses are not going to be deductible, we need to understand what the IRS is looking for. So the IRS says there are 3 requirements that you need in order to be able to deduct a business expense. The first one is it has to be ordinary. So it has to be common within the industry that you're engaged in. So advertising, something that most businesses do, that's going to be common in your industry. So if you have advertising expenses, that's going to be a deductible expense for you. Necessary. So necessary seems like it's going to be a complicated term, but the way that it's really been construed by the courts and by the IRS when you're looking at necessary is it's been helpful for your business. Okay, so software like QuickBooks and things like that, that's generally going to be a deductible expense. So ordinary and necessary expenses. So if you have a business that you have to do deliveries with, well, the vehicle could be an ordinary and necessary business expense because it's going to be common in the industry that you're engaged in, and it's going to be helpful for you to be able to carry out that type of business. It could be equipment. It's going to be common in your industry, helpful for engaging in the business. So what you're looking for is a strong connection. Something that's common in your industry doesn't mean everybody uses it, but it means that it's common in your industry and that it's going to be helpful for your business. Now, the other portion is going to be the business use. You cannot deduct these if it's for personal use. Sometimes you're going to have an asset that's going to be used for both business and personal use. Well, you can only deduct the portion of it that is going to be for business use only. Okay. If you have if you have different types of expenses that are only personal in nature, you can't deduct those costs at all. And then a lot of times if they have a personal use, you're not going to be able to deduct them anyways. So like clothing, for example, if it has a common use, you wouldn't be able to deduct that. Well, let's go ahead and look at what types of expenses you cannot deduct. Okay, so let's talk about some of those expenses that are not going to be deductible for you. So they're going to include things like your personal expenses that we just talked about. So if you're taking your family on travel with you, can't deduct the cost for your family even if you were on business travel. So your meals and things like that you're taking, that's not going to be deductible expense. Commuting costs are not deductible. So a lot of times you're going to have individuals that want to go ahead and try to deduct their commuting costs. So if they have an office that they head to from their home, that's not a cost that you can deduct. That's a choice. You lived away from your office. It's not a deductible expense. Just like a W-2 employee, you can't deduct the cost that you have to drive to your office to go to work. Those are not deductible expenses. Now, if you're going from, say, your first client to your second client, now those things where you're jumping from client to client, those things are deductible. You'd be able to take that, but your general commuting costs are not going to be deductible from your home to your office and back. Those are not deductible expenses. Like I said, clothing is generally not going to be deductible because it has a personal use to it. So you can wear it outside of work as a general rule. Now, there are certain types of clothing that you cannot do that with, and that's going to be a deductible expense. So if you have something like you're working and you have to wear some kind of costume and stand outside of a business and you're trying to attract people to come in, well, you may not have to dress like a clown. That may not be ordinary outside of the office, or outside of your work. You could probably deduct the cost for dressing like a clown or whatever it is. But if you just had to wear suits to work or whatever, hey, that's not going to be a deductible expense to you. So you're not going to be able to deduct that because you can wear suits outside the office, so it has a general use purpose to it. The next one's going to be meals and entertainment. So when you're talking about meals and entertainment, here's the thing. Entertainment is not deductible. So if you're going to go ahead and you're going to take your clients over to the Super Bowl or whatever, you're not going to be able to deduct that. It's not a deductible expense. You cannot deduct it. Okay, now for financial accounting purposes, that's handled differently. But for tax purposes, you're not able to deduct those entertainment expenses. Meals, you get a portion of it that's going to be deductible. If it's a business meal, you can deduct up to 50% of the business meal. So there is a deductible component for meals, but not for entertainment expenses. Fines, those are not going to be deductible. So if you get some kind of fine, you're driving to the office and you're speeding, right? And you get caught and you're like, oh, but I got to go there. I had a meeting. I got to see my client. I had a meeting with the IRS. I'm trying to represent a client, whatever it is. Hey, that's not a deductible expense. We cannot deduct the cost of penalties and fines for tax purposes. So it's a non-deductible expense for you. Sometimes you have things that are going to be mixed, right? And we talked about that a little bit before, where it's going to have a business purpose and a non-business purpose. It's a personal use purpose. You can only deduct the cost of the business portion, not the entire amount if you're also using it for personal purposes. So that's another limit. And gifts a lot of times are not going to be deductible for you over $25. So there's usually a limit that's going to limit how much you're going to be able to deduct for those types of costs. Now, those are some of the most common types of business expenses where people try to claim them, but those are not actually going to be deductible costs for them. So those will get flagged, and you just cannot take those types of deductions. So be aware of that. I do have a video out there that does talk about common deductions, business deductions that you are able to take. So that's something you may want to check out as well. Hey, if this video has been helpful, remember to go ahead and subscribe to this channel. I have a lot of other information, not only on personal tax, but also on business taxes, including a full walkthrough that takes you from 1099 through your Schedule C, and then it walks you through the entire Schedule C. I also have one that's on self-employment. It'll take you from the 1099 to the Schedule C. It vaguely touches Schedule C in that video, but it centers on your self-employment, your Schedule SE, and then how that goes over to your Schedule 2, your Schedule 1, back over to your 1040. So a lot of resources available on this channel. So go ahead and subscribe. Make sure you're keeping up to date with that stuff. And good luck as you continue to work on your taxes and learn different strategies to minimize your taxable income.